Hey everyone, just wanted to give you an update on some very interesting information I came across recently um, on this Mike Horn Antarctica traverse crossing of the alleged continent of Antarctica. Um, I found quite a few discrepancies with this and found some very interesting information that we're not generally told about. Um, there's some issues with um, the South Pole, issues with his departure from, or say, arrival to the Antarctica station, the Dumont Dervai station at the end of his expedition. Um, a lot of issues with the GPS, traveling, the distance he navigated. So, um, I did quite a bit of a deep dive on this, and I mean, I looked through some climate engineering papers, some aerospace engineering papers, just to kind of get more information on the route that he actually traveled as far as the wind speeds, the wind trajectories, with the katabatic winds. Um, and I did some extra research on some physics papers, some published physics papers on uh, GPS and the constant velocity of light, and how there's GPS built-in corrections for Sagnac effect and relative simultaneity, and there's also meridian distance corrections that are baked into the GPS, and we're going to look at how that directly affects um, this particular traverse. It also affects globe races and pretty much anything below the equator. Um, but we're going to particularly focus on this traverse today. So it was a pretty deep dive, a lot of research that went into it, and we're going to look at all of that. But first, we're going to get into the route that he took, and it started out in Cape Town, Africa, and it went down to, I believe it was Novo Station, which is a Russian Antarctica base station. From there, it went to the South Pole, about right here, and then from there it finished in Dumont Dervai, which is the French base station, which is about right here. And actually, this is supposed to be probably a little bit farther over. It was actually about closer to here, and then to the South Pole, and then down to here. But and you're going to find out too that this is a kind of a common route that a lot of these expeditions go on, and there's a reason for that. You'll find that this route here, you kind of see they always go right here on this top half of the continent, and with the exception of Mike Horn, which actually goes a little bit farther down here, and that's why we're covering this one today. But you'll notice that's the common route. You kind of notice it's always in this top half of the continent. You never see an expedition that goes from the peninsula down to the South Pole and then continues north to the Casey or Mawson station over here on this side of Antarctica. And there's a reason why they take these routes, not just because of the winds, but because of the actual true nature of Antarctica, which we're going to find that out here once we go over all this. Um, but yeah, this route um, was estimated at about 5,100 kilometers, and which I believe is 3,168 miles across. And we're going to find out that that is just not the case. It's actually impossible once we actually look into this. But if we look, I do have this route plotted out on a Gleason's map, and we can see, I'm actually going to show a short, brief video after this map here to kind of go over how there is major mileage discrepancies between the South Pole locations, the arbitrarily located multiple South Pole locations that we discovered on Google Earth. And that's just, I'm kind of showing you that just so you can kind of understand that Antarctica isn't what we're told it is. It's a lot of the stuff that's located there is just arbitrary locations that they have to put there because the distances don't match up. So that, with that being said, these longitude and latitude locations of these base stations, we have no idea where they're actually located. I mean, they could be 700 to 1,200 miles further south or further north than where we're actually told they're located. So right here is showing where he basically started, which is, conveniently is close to the South Pole already. It's in the general region of the South Pole. So that makes a lot of sense. But like I said, these stations could be shifted down another 1,000 miles closer than what we're told. We're also going to find out, with it seems like it kind of seems when you look at the bigger picture that he made it to the South Pole a lot quicker than he did for the second half of the route. Because here it's close to the South Pole, and then he's up here is where this is Concordia Station, which there's kind of a weird discrepancy that happens with Concordia Station at the end of his trip, and then up to here to finish. So it's kind of like, this trip here to South Pole and up to here, but you're going to find there's some discrepancies with the South Pole and Vermont Dervi and the Concordia Station. So we'll get into all that in a minute, but I'm going to show this video quick here just to give you a brief idea of the major mileage discrepancies that we can actually measure on Google Earth of Antarctica, and how everything is not even close to where we're told it's located. So we'll go ahead and get into that, and then we'll get back into this expedition. So we're going to look at some of these discrepancies and problems with these South Pole measurements. Now, these measurements are coming from the 60th degree south parallel, the 60th latitude. We are not allowed to independently travel below this 60 degree latitude line per the Antarctica Treaty. This is where we're going to be taking our South Pole measurements from, is this 60 degree latitude line. So if we pull up Google Earth, we can see that this 60 degree latitude line is approximately 12,295 miles around Antarctica. Every point that we measure to the South Pole from this latitude line should be exactly the same if we're actually on a globe. So let's go ahead and check out some of these measurements. As you can see, there is quite a few major mileage discrepancies. One of them is as far as 700 miles, which should be impossible on a globe. These should all be exactly the same. Maybe a mile or so off if you're not on the exact right spot, but not 700 miles. So we're going to look at some more issues here. If we measure from the South Pole to the geographic South Pole, it's about 956 miles.
And then we can measure from the South Pole to the ceremonial South Pole, and it's a little over 1,000 miles. There's a distance between the ceremonial South Pole and the geographic South Pole of 131 miles. Now, why would we need to have so many different South Poles with hundreds, if not thousands, of miles between each one? It makes no sense. But we're going to actually find another major issue here, that if we look at the actual 131 mile distance from the geographical South Pole to the ceremonial South Pole, and then we look at some documentaries that document this ceremonial South Pole, we can see that the geographic South Pole is within eyesight of the ceremonial South Pole. It's only a few meters away. So how is Google Earth showing that the geographical South Pole is 131 miles away from the ceremonial South Pole, if it's literally within eyesight in this documentary? Just makes no sense. And then let's also look at where all the buildings at. I mean, I thought they were at Amundsen Scott, base station. You can't see any of the buildings with this panoramic view. And that's, you're going to see, this is going to come up later with the Dick Smith circumnavigation. There's a lot of missing scenery from some of these photos, and we're going to get in that later. But yeah, there's just a lot of very suspicious discrepancies and issues with these South Pole distances and what we're shown. So none of it's adding up, and we're actually going to get more into that here in a minute.
Speaking of Antarctica, there was another interesting thing I found, that when you apply to go down there for whatever reason, take pictures, to go work as a scientist or whatever, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. If you guys know what that's like, it's like somebody's giving you secrets about a certain product or a new TV show, and you're not allowed to say anything. So what's going on down in Antarctica that you might see while you're down there that you're not allowed to say anything, besides Sir Richard Fakes-a-Lot faking another expedition?
So now that we know that there's some major mileage discrepancies with Google Earth with Antarctica, we can kind of, we know that we don't objectively know where he's actually starting at. Like, sure, he had this GPS at the beginning of his route that showed where he started. And I say beginning of the route because he actually lost it at the beginning of his expedition, conveniently. But, we don't know these coordinates, these longitude and latitude coordinates that they're plugging into the globular shadow coordinate system. They can put those wherever they want. They could be 1,000 miles north or 1,000 miles south. Like, we don't know. So, we can get a kind of a general idea where they're at, but we don't know the exact objective location where they're at. So that's why I wanted to show you the mileage discrepancies that just don't line up on Google Earth. And we're going to get more into the details of the GPS on the physics papers later, as far as the coordinate system goes. But I did read this. I found this right away. They had interviewed him and after the expedition, and they were talking about tracking equipment, and he had claimed that he had a GPS InReach Explorer, which is, I believe it's a Garmin InReach Explorer, and very conveniently he lost that at the beginning of the expedition. So I think it's kind of funny that the one thing that he could have used to objectively show the exact route that he took, with all the distance and the mileage and everything to track it down, and by the day, every day, he conveniently loses that. So thought that was kind of funny. So he did have a satellite phone to coordinate his GPS coordinates, because it was an Iridium satellite phone. So he was able to, I allegedly plot his GPS coordinates with his home team. And we're going to find out that that becomes very convenient for him because it's a good way to hide the distance corrections, because they can't um, calculate it by the day. It's plotted, it's plotted differently, so you're not going to know the actual mileage that you're going to have the mileage that he claims he's using from the baked in distance corrections, but um, you're not going to have a specific idea. You're not going to notice, between each point. So you'll see here when he had the Garmin InReach Explorer, it was plotted here. You can see these little dots and these messages. This is when he had his Garmin InReach, and then he lost it, shortly before he got to the South Pole. And I think that's also could be tied into the discrepancies with when he got to the South Pole, because this would have, showed the exact, gave more specific information on when he got to the South Pole. But you'll see here, and I found a couple of websites that had mentioned this. They correct his arrival at the South Pole. So this here says that he arrived at the geographical South Pole on January 9th. Correction, not December 28th as written before. So you'll notice that they've changed the dates on when he got to the South Pole. And I've seen that on a couple of sites. But again, we don't have that. And the other thing too is, if you search like his social media, because he has his base homepage, his website, and then he has Instagram, he has Facebook and all that. And like if you search his social media and just type in like South Pole, you can browse through all of his different media, and you'll never find a single photo of him actually at the South Pole. Now, there's photos on Google that you can find of him at the South Pole. He was there. It's just the reason that it's not posted on like Facebook is because it's going to have a timestamp. It's going to tell you the exact day, the exact day and year that he was there. So I think that actually comes in handy too at the end of his expedition. You'll notice that he doesn't post any photos of when he's at Dermont-Dervai with no timestamps. And the only photos that you do find of it from like one website where he's taking a photo in front of the statue in front of it, the station, it's like 5 days after he was allegedly there. So there's a reason why he's leaving these photos, I believe, off of these social media, is because it gives you the actual dates of when he was there. And because this thing is too is with this Iridium satellite phone, he's got that connected to his smartphone, and you'll see that he can actually take photos, or say he can send photos and videos and emails with his smartphone like in real time. And it's kind of funny because he has all these opportunities to like take pictures and videos when he's at the South Pole, and then he doesn't. And then at the very end, he gets when he finishes this, and allegedly on February 7th, he makes this video, and we'll show it really quick.
Yeah, this is Michael, back from Antarctica. It's a little bit windy out there, a lousy day. But a lot of questions came in on how do I communicate, so I'll explain it to you briefly. I have a satellite communication device called the Meridian Go, and that connects to my smartphone via Wi-Fi. And what happens is I deselect on the Meridian Go device the size of photos I would like to send, and then I can send a photo without touching the photo, just taking the photo, and the device resizes the photo. And I place the photo in an email, and I write the text in the email, and then I just push send and receive. It's an easy to operate device. The battery life lasts forever. And wherever I go in the world, I can be connected because it works on a system of low orbiting satellites that constantly is.
So I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can kind of see
The
that
world.
he's basically just kind of showing a video explaining of the tracking devices that he's using, the Iridian satellite phone, and how he can use it with his smartphone and send emails. I don't know if you guys had a hard time hearing that, but that's the gist of the video. Now, this video was actually sent to his Facebook timeline the day that he finished the Antarctica crossing, February 7th, 2017. That is the official narrative of when he finished this crossing. So this is when he arrives in Dumont-D'Urville, which is the station at the end of the trip. So that is right here, or actually this is not where it's completely finished, but it would be the last station at the end. So that's when he finished the race. And it's interesting because he makes this video, but then you would think he would make a video of, him actually finishing. Like he would take a video that showed photos at least of him at Dumont-D'Urville. Like if you trekked all the way across the United States on this like 60-day expedition and or whatever, how long it's like you trekked across the country for 500 days on foot and you made it, from the East Coast to the West Coast or West Coast to East Coast. And you get all the way to the end and you get to New York City and you're like, all right, I finished it. Like I finished the race. I'm going to update this on my Facebook or my, my social media. Like you would, you'd take a photo of like a famous landmark, like the Statue of Liberty, like, hey, I made it. I completed the race, like I did it. Like nothing. Like he has no pictures of him at um the French station or anything. It's just this like this general like message that he sends with photos that he took while he was on the trip. So I thought that was really weird, that he didn't really document him actually finishing, this 57-day expedition. It just didn't make any sense. Find that the only photo that does come up of him at the French station was from like 5 days after the expedition. So there's days of time missing. There's missing information. That was pretty strange. You also find that he made that before he finished the race, or I should say, it's allegedly when he was done with the race, he when he's done with the expedition, he apparently is hosted by the Concordia station, and he's up there for 3 days after his arrival to Dumont-D'Urville. Now that seems kind of odd because that's like 1,150 kilometers from the coast of Antarctica. So it's like saying he finished the race, he got down to here, and then it was like, okay, I already spent 60 days, almost 60 days out here in Antarctica. I'm gonna turn around and go ahead and go back again near the South Pole and just hang out there for a few days. Like what? Like why would you finish this long race and you want to go back inland of Antarctica, like almost 1,000 miles inland back near the South Pole again? I think Concordia Station is about right here. It's actually on the exact GPS route that he took, or the satellite phone route that he took. It's right here. So I'm like, well, he doesn't have any pictures on any of his social media of him actually getting to Dumont-D'Urville, and there's actually on here they're trying to track him at the end of it, and they're saying that they can't find a report of him being there when he's supposed to be. So, where was that at? Mike's exact end position and distance in a straight line will be updated as soon as available. So they have no, like, he's got a satellite phone, but they have no GPS information on when he got there or the exact time, the date, the position and distance when he got to Dumont Durvai. So it's like, you know, I'm not saying that he, because the thing is too with Dumont Durvai, or say the Concordia station is, which is right here, that actually makes they make like these raids, which are like these caravans of supplies. They take them from the Dunham station, which is right behind Dumont Durvai, and they make these raids, which is like 4 times during the Antarctica summer, which is the exact time that Mike Horn is doing this expedition, which is like that's kind of convenient timing. And they also make these flights. It's like daily flights there with these planes. So it's like, did he actually? I mean, did he traverse all the way back down to there? Like the kite, did he snow kite all the way down, or did he just like catch a plane flight? And he's kind of like changing the story. I'm not saying that's what he did, because the more we look at this, we see that the mileage that he's it's doable with what he's traveling, because we're going to look at the actual traveling speeds he's doing it, and it still completely destroys the narrative distance of what we're told of Antarctica. But so I just thought that was interesting, that there's a lot of missing information at the South Pole. There's information showing him going back up to Concordia station, like, but it's saying it's after the trip was over, so he finishes it, but then he's like, all right, I want to go back up here near the South Pole again and hang out for a few days, and then and then go back to Tasmania, Australia. Just that, something like that just seems really weird, and the fact that we don't have any photos on any of his social media of him arriving there. There's reports that don't have any, the French articles and stuff. There's the websites. Nobody has any official timestamp of when he got there. Um, but yet he's hanging out at Concordia Station around the time when he was finishing the race. It just seems kind of odd. It doesn't make any sense. But again, we don't objectively know, because he's not using he lost his Garmin GPS. So we have no idea what's going on. But let's go ahead and we're going to look at some of the mileage discrepancies here. Now, the thing that's kind of interesting about this race, this expedition, is he actually he like trained, he conditioned his body to his biological clock to like have a 30-hour day. So he basically trained his day to pretend like, with the prolonged daylight and sunlight, because the Antarctica has the 24 hours of sunlight there, which actually he makes a comment on here that actually debunks the 24-hour sun, which I totally forgot to mention. I'm going to go back to that in a minute here, but it's just funny because there's so much stuff that not only debunks the size of Antarctica, but it actually objectively debunks the 24-hour sun in Antarctica. But he says, because there's the prolonged daylight there, that I, changed it to where, because the southern pole is operating in 24-hour sunshine, I can change my days, program my body to have a 30-hour day. So I'm actually eating for 5 hours a day, sleeping for 5 hours a day, and skiing for 14 hours a day. And it says it again here. So he got kite skied up to 20 hours a day, and he pulled this 500-pound sled of supplies. So the 20 hours, I don't think he's actually doing 20 hours a day. I think it's going off of the 30-hour. He tricked his biological clock to think that his body is having 30-hour days. So he's actually sleeping for 5 hours, eating for 5 hours, and then he's actually kite skiing for about 14 to 15 hours a day, which is still a lot. I mean, we're going to find out that that's what kind of where he's banking all these extra miles. But that kind of points out how he's skiing for 14 hours a day. And here again, it says it again. During his solo Antarctic crossing, he used nonstop sunlight to trick his body into thinking the day lasted for 30 hours rather than 24, so he could sleep for 5 hours, eat for 5 hours, and walk for 20 hours, or kite ski for 20 hours. But it's actually, there's a lot of articles that says he skis for 14 hours a day. So we're going to go with that, just for to go along with the narrative to get a good reference. But so we know that he's skiing for about 14 hours a day, right here. So in the normal conditions, Mr. Horn would sleep 5 hours, eat 5 hours, and ski for 14 hours. So now I'm going to go back to that 24-hour sun thing for a minute. So now you guys got to understand that this expedition happened between December, middle of December, and it went all the way through the beginning of February. The Antarctica summer solstice is those months. Like, that's the peak time when they would have a 24-hour sun, especially at the South Pole, which is where he is. He literally is at the South Pole. Like, he's navigating towards the South Pole, and he's arriving and departing from there during these 3 months. So this, if the 24-hour sun exists, he would objectively have to see it, right? So he makes a comment on here, and I think this was a slip. I don't think this was supposed to be mentioned, but he has said that okay, so he says, found a kite again around Stradrugi, and then, okay, Mike spent up to 14 hours a day kite skiing. Then he also reported that the sun set at night, which made for cold tent temperatures this late in the season. So the sun, he says the sun sets at night, every night. So he's telling you that the sun is setting every day in Antarctica during the peak time when there's supposed to be a 24-hour sun. So you've already seen that I've debunked a few of these 24-hour sun videos. They fake them. They cut and edit the webcam footage at the globe monitoring website at the South Pole literally every day for the entire year. There's several videos on that, and if you haven't seen them, I can link it to them. But it's just another proof that there's no 24-hour sun there. He's literally saying that the sun is setting every day while he is skiing. It's setting, at night, which would probably be like civil twilight, because I think that there's going to be prolonged daylight, and that's a thing I think a lot of people confuse. Whether it's tourists or scientists, people are there. They're confusing 24-hour daylight with a 24-hour sun, and this is going to be kind of for another video, but it only works on a flat model, like the way the sun wraps around the Tropic of Capricorn. You can replicate that with like a magnified dome and a light pen, and you can see that the sun, if you have it at the right angle, and it'll actually wrap all the way around Antarctica, but you won't see the sun in the sky or above the horizon. The sun will be missing from the sky, but you'll still have daylight. It's impossible on a globe, but it works perfectly on a flat model. And so, but we'll talk about that some other time. But I thought that was interesting that he literally debunks the 24-hour sun in this comment here. And the thing too is, a lot of these stuff I found, I couldn't just easily find it. They were on like French websites and Russian websites that I had to translate to English to even like read them. So it's kind of a deep dive that I had to do on this for the research. But we're going to get into the mileage discrepancies now. So I'm going to show this video here of because we're going to go actually, we're going to do the math here from the official narrative of the expedition. We're going to see that it makes absolutely no sense. So if we look at the actual narrative, it's saying that he navigated 5,100 kilometers or 3,168 miles, which took 57 days to complete. If we do the math, 14 hours a day of kite skiing, we take that times 57 days, it's 798 hours. And then if we take the divide the total mileage by the 798 hours, it's saying that he was only traveling an average speed of 3.97 miles per hour for the whole trip, the whole navigation. And he's doing this for 14 hours a day. Well, we're going to completely destroy that, because that is just not the case. He's not traveling 3 to 4 miles per hour, and I can pretty much prove it. And this is kind of, you'll kind of notice this common like 3 to 4 mile per hour speed, not just with expeditions, but if you've seen some of my previous videos on globe races, they'll navigate for 90 days, or with the Golden Globe race, it's like 260 days. And then you do the math for their cruising speed, and it's, you subtract the Antarctica circumpolar currents, and they're averaging like 3 to 4 miles per hour on a monohull yacht that has an average cruising speed of 18 to 20 miles per hour and has a top speed of like 41 to 43 miles per hour. But yet they're setting these world records going around, or circumnavigating the world with a cruising speed of 3 to 4 miles per hour. So you're going to notice that this is a common speed that you see on these expeditions and globe races. And we're going to kind of get into the actual speed that he was navigating here, and the distance that he navigated with the distance corrections, the meridian distance corrections. But let's go ahead and get into some of these the speed, distance, and the disparities with the navigating distance that he did. And we're going to kind of compare it to other kite skiing races and other people that have kite skied in Antarctica. And before I show these videos, I do want to show one thing here too, so you have kind of a more context for the route that he traveled with the speeds too. So when he's in Antarctica, remember the route that he took, it was from Novo Station, and it went down to the South Pole, and then it went down to Dumont-Durville. You kind of notice here, there's literally a clear path that goes all the way through here, and look at the directions of the wind. So and Antarctica actually has the highest winds in the entire world. They have a lot of times up to 120 mile per hour winds, and they're consistent. The katabatic winds are consistent every day, all year round. Now, when he's starting off, he's going here. When he's snow skiing, kite skiing, basically the kite is going, and it's pulling his skis this way because these winds are on here. So he's turning his kite this direction to pull him this way, and he's just going to be cruising along, and then he's going to get to here around the South Pole, and then the winds are going to keep pulling him here because they're going this way. And then when he gets to the end, you see the winds are pulling him right here to Dumont-Durville to finish the expedition. So literally he's got winds that are pulling him this whole time, like 24 hours a day. If he was to do it 24 hours a day, he's doing about 14 hours a day. He's basically just eating, sleeping, and then getting up and kite skiing for 14 hours a day. And we're going to see that these races that there's one in Ragnarok, Norway. The speeds that they're traveling, they're not even getting as high of winds as he's getting in Antarctica. So he could be even going faster than what they're going. But I wanted to show, I found this from some climate engineering papers. And like I said, it was a very carefully planned out route. And that's exactly the reason why he took that route. And that's why a lot of the other explorers take that route. Not just because they can't go from here and then keep going north to Casey Station, because they would have to travel all the way around the whole coastline. It would take them hundreds of days to do it, and people would kind of, start to notice the red flags, like what's going on. But they take this route because of the winds, the katabatic winds that take them through there and literally just guides them all the way through from this side to that side. And they'll never do, like a north to south, flight or expedition over this way, because for one, the winds are going to be completely against them and they can't. And the other thing too is they won't ever go from this way to that way. They won't ever start like here and then go the other way up, and finish, over by Novo Station or Halley Station or Newmeyer Station. They won't ever finish over here because the winds would be against them. So they take total advantage of these winds. So I just wanted to show you that, just so you know that he has these consistent winds that are boosting him the entire time, like tremendous winds that allows him to navigate like 24/7 on this kite skiing expedition. So now we're going to get into some of these different speed disparities and mileage disparities here. I'm going to show you a video that's going to kind of compare the distance he was traveling and compare it to the distance that these other people are kite skiing. So we'll go ahead and get into that. As we can see again here, this is just showing, Mike skied up to 20 hours a day, pulling a 500-pound supplies on a sled behind him. And, like, I don't think he was actually doing 20 hours. I think, like, I'm going to stick with the 14 hours. I mean, he could have been navigating, 20 hours a day at some point if he had some extra energy, but we're just going to stick with the 14-hour narrative for now. But you can see here, he's skiing, snow kiting at a pretty decent clip here. Like right here, you can see he's moving along at least 30 miles, 20 to 30 miles an hour there. You'll see these other videos here that, to kind of compare. They're going a lot faster than what you would think. We're going to get into this other race here. We're going to do kind of a side-by-side comparison here too, to kind of show you the difference or show you how much similar they are. So this is a snow kiting race in Ragnarok, Norway. It's like the biggest snow kiting race in the world. This guy was actually, I believe this guy won the race. You see here, he's going up to 70 kilometers per hour there. 70 kilometers per hour. That's like 45 to 47 miles per hour. This is the same, snow kite that Mike Horn's using. Same equipment. Now, this video here, it's like 2 hours long. So it tracks him for 2 hours. And he rarely ever drops below like 30 kilometers per hour, which is like 18 to 20 miles per hour. And that's for 2 hours straight. So that's not even the full race. So we obviously can see that they're traveling at 30 to 45 miles per hour for a large part of the race. Now this, you guys are saying, oh, well, he's not carrying a supply sled behind him. Well, this one here is another one. This is a Mark Sedan, I believe his name. He's traveling with a 500-pound supply bag behind him, and you can see he's moving along at a pretty fast clip. Now, I wanted to show this one, just kind of give you guys an idea of how fast these guys are going, even with a supply sled. Now, does that look like he's going 3 to 4 miles per hour to you? Because it doesn't look like he's going that fast to me. It looks like he's going a lot faster. I would guess here he's going at least 30 to 35 miles per hour. And he may be going faster than that. I mean, this is also in Antarctica. So, he's got those kabatic winds that are just guiding him along the way. And he is just flying along here. I mean, he's got to be going a minimum of 25 miles per hour. But I think he's going easily over 30 miles an hour there. I mean, look how fast he's going. Okay, And this is the same equipment, same snow kite, same, 500 pound supply sled behind him. And look how fast he is cruising. And Mike Horn is doing this for 14 hours, minimum of 14 hours a day. So, yeah. So we're doing a side-by-side comparison here. Here's Mike Horn, and then there's the guy from the Ragnarok race in Norway. And you can kind of just get a visual comparing the two as they ski side by side here. And this was, I kind of point out earlier, this is an hour and 48 minutes long. If you watch this whole video, pretty much at no point does he drop below, I think it was 30 kilometers. I think at one point maybe 25 kilometers. So the minimum, the slowest he's going for 2 hours is like 18 miles an hour. And do you really believe now that Mike Horn is going only 3 miles an hour for this whole time across Antarctica? Skiing for 14 hours a day, he's going 3 miles an hour? Come on, guys. That's impossible. This guy for 2 hours on this other race never went below 18 miles an hour for 2 hours. So, and he's going upwards to 45 miles per hour. So that 3 miles per hour is just, it makes absolutely no sense. And here's the other one, the same guy carrying a supply bag behind him, and he's flying, going 30, 35, 40 miles an hour. And I wanted to show that as a side by side to give you guys an idea of how fast he's actually navigating. So this just kind of goes to show you that they're skiing a lot faster than what we're told. And the reason for that is because of these built-in meridian distance corrections that are baked into the GPS coordinate system. These guys, they're not really, at the end of the day, they're explorers. They're on an expedition. They're on a race against time. They're trying to navigate as fast as they can. They're trying to sail these boats as fast as they can. They're not doing math. They're skiing. They're sailing. They're trying to get there as fast as they can. They're just going off of whatever the GPS coordinate system is going to tell them. So, if it's saying, they traveled 100 miles after 14 hours and it comes out to only 3 miles an hour, then they're probably going to be scratching their head thinking, okay, well, I thought I was going a lot faster than 3 miles an hour. But I guess the GPS said that, so that's what I was doing. When in reality, we know that's just not the case. They're going 30 to 40 miles per hour. And, we're going to get into those physics papers later that point out those GPS corrections, but that's why the math just isn't adding up for the distance across Antarctica. Okay, so now that you kind of know that obviously there's a huge disparity between the speeds that they're claiming they're traveling and what they're actually traveling, um, we can kind of do the math here. And just to kind of get a rough idea, I think, a lot of those other skiers were traveling, well, we could see that one skier was traveling consistently between like 30 to 45 miles per hour for a pretty, good clip there. I mean, and he never dropped below 20 miles per hour for 2 hours straight. So, like I said, there's a lot of times he was going up to 45 miles per hour. So I think, probably a realistic cruising speed to kind of factor in, like I would normally say, like he's probably going about 25 to 30 miles an hour for a lot of that trip. But we'll just figure 20 miles per hour and figure a little low. And we can kind of do the math for his actual speed and distance, and we'll just figure it at 20 miles per hour. And if he's skiing for 14 hours a day, which is what he's claiming, that's 280 miles a day. And if we do that times 57 days, that's 15,960 miles. So almost 16,000 miles. So Antarctica is only 3,000, a little over 3,100 miles across, at least the route that he took. So how is it that based off of these cruising speeds, he's going nearly 16,000 miles? I mean, that's 4 times further. So how does this go from, from here down to here, from being 31,000 miles to being 16,000 miles? And he may be going faster than that. Like if we figured he was doing 25 miles per hour for his cruising speed, that's like 19,000 miles. So that's almost 20,000 miles. And that's only 5 miles an hour more per hour, which, according to those other videos, I mean, that's obviously achievable. So, and I found this one link that he had. There's one day where he's like, yeah, and then you see this a lot on a lot of his posts. He said, oh, another day, like it's just normal, 211 kilometers um, with, his kite from kite skiing. So he basically said he did about, 211 kilometers, which when we do the math, that's about 131 miles in a day, which to me still seems really low because he's skiing for 14 hours and he's going 20 to 30, who knows, 35 miles an hour most of the day. So even at 20 miles an hour for a 14-hour day, that is 280 miles, and that's figuring on the low end. So that's over double of this. So that's where you kind of start to see, like, if you figure this math here for the whole trip, it comes out to averaging like 3 to 4 miles per hour. Like we know that just doesn't add up. Now it would make more sense if you add up the trip and 16 or 19,000 miles an hour, and it comes out to like an 18 mile per hour average cruising speed. That would make a lot more logical sense compared to all these other observable races and other kite skiing that we can measure and observe. So the 3 to 4 mile per hour speed for a 3,000 mile difference across Antarctica is just impossible. It just does not add up. So that's why I just wanted to show you those other kite skiers, just to kind of show you the difference between the different speeds. And there's just a lot of this trip here that doesn't add up. And like I said, at the end of the day, like they're not mathematicians. Okay, they're experienced explorers, and on the globe races, they're experienced sailboat captains, but they're not GPS engineers, they're just trying to get from point A to point B as fast as they can. The thing with this Mike Horn expedition too is that he was in a race against time because he had to beat. There was supposed to be a storm that was coming in around the 60-day mark, so he was trying to get there in under 60 days. So that's why it was nonstop. He didn't take any breaks. Even when he was at the South Pole, he stopped for a brief moment to eat with the ALE members, and then he went on his way and kept skiing. So he was sleeping 5 hours a day and conditioned to that, so he could ski as much as he could throughout the day. And so these guys they're navigating as fast as they can. They're not looking at how fast they're going per hour, and they're not looking at the math. But when we do actually look at the math, we find out why it's only coming out to 3 or 4 miles per hour. It's because of these built-in meridian distance corrections that are built into the GPS coordinate system, and we're going to get into more detail on that here in a minute. Okay, this is the physics paper I was referring to. This is the GPS and the constant velocity of light. This was submitted by physicist Paul Marmot to Newton Physics. This basically details the built-in corrections on the GPS coordinate system. It kind of goes over the corrections for Sagnac effect, relative simultaneity, and built-in meridian distance corrections. just to add a little bit of context to this, there was a group of physicists and GPS engineers that discovered these corrections. I want to say back in the earlier mid 90s. And they kind of wanted to get some answers for these corrections. So they wrote some papers, they took them to the Department of GPS in Colorado, um, and said, "Hey, what's going on with all these corrections?" And the corrections never got addressed. Um, Not a single person in academia or the GPS directory addressed these corrections, and they actually just swept it all under the rug multiple times. And not only that, but some of the GPS engineers actually lost their jobs over questioning these corrections. They lost their careers over like looking too much into these built-in corrections. So they basically they had to stop looking into it. They couldn't question it. So that's kind of the backstory on it. But it is a pretty detailed paper. I'm not going to get into every detail. I'm just going to I did kind of want to talk about relative simultaneity, but I'm probably gonna just do that at another time. We're just gonna talk about the built-in meridian distance corrections for the time being, just because it's relative to the topic of this expedition. So we can see among the GPS list of corrections, there is a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth meridians are crossed by light or by the moving clock between two locations. So in summary, what that means is that there is a built-in correction on the ECI reference frame and the atomic clock for the GPS coordinate system between meridian lines. So when you're traveling, like on Google Earth here, if you're traveling between 10 degrees west and 20 degrees west, your GPS might say you're traveling like 1,000 miles here, but in reality, you're could be traveling 1,800 miles or 2,000 miles. Like we don't know what that is because it's baked into the coordinate system. So these were the questions that these GPS engineers were trying to figure out, and they lost their jobs over them. So that is basically how these meridian corrections are built in. And so when people say, "Oh, how does a southern flight travel this distance?" They'd have to travel 1,000 miles an hour. Well, the reason that they're I can't provide you documentation on these southern flights because there's built-in meridian corrections. We don't have access to that. We don't know what these actual distances are. So you guys, they trust these GPS distances when there's baked in distance corrections, not just below the equator, but up north too. The distances are shorter up north. So, and with southern flights too, if you'd seen some of my previous videos, it's not just the meridian distance corrections, but there was a model builder that actually extrapolated the raw GPS data with GPS tracking software and found that these southern flights were going like 200 to 300 miles per hour faster than what the Flight Radar 24 website was reporting. So it's not just these built-in corrections, but they're literally cooking the books on these Flight Aware and Flight Radar 24 websites. So there's multiple angles from this where the deception's coming from. So it's the GPS provider websites. It's a pretty elaborate, interwoven, carefully orchestrated deception. But the other thing too is this is why GPS is not an open source technology. Okay. Now you may have some people, some Globers might say, well, yeah, it's an open source technology. Like you can go on GitHub, you can find GPS links on there. You can implement it on one of your devices. No, that's not what we're talking about. Okay, like we don't have access to the transformations. We don't have access to the coding. We don't have access to the mathematics for these built-in corrections. That's why it's not open source. Okay, we don't have access to any of this information. That's why GPS is it's patented and owned by NASA and the military. It's a closed source technology. You can't go on GitHub and like debunk GPS or debunk the globe, just from a couple of GPS links that you found on GitHub. Like it's not how it works. So yeah, it's not an open source technology. And the answers that we're trying to get, people lost their jobs over trying to get the same answers. So it's interesting that you can't even question the corrections of GPS. And we are actually going to get more into some of these corrections with the shadow coordinate system that's built into the GPS, and we're going to get more details on that here in a bit.
GPS synchronization has been verified in numerous experiments. It is identical to the calculations presented in this paper, and also to the Sagnac effect, which is included in the GPS. Among the list of the corrections, there is a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth meridians are crossed by the path of light or by a moving clock move between the what?
Wait, what?
What?
Are
Yo.
crossed by
Yo.
clock.
Whoa. Whoa. Red
This is Earth
flag.
meridian again.
Red flag. So the latitude line. So every time it crosses the lines, like
It says
right
there's
here.
a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth's meridians.
So anytime it crosses one of these lines, Toby.
There's another account for it, right? Another parameter that they add into it.
Dude.
Go back.
Dude, Toby, we're never going to be able to get the distance using GPS, dog.
No, of course not, dude.
No,
Of
look
course
at this.
not.
Literally to the fucking meridian, bro.
Among the GPS list of corrections, there is a correction involving a parameter. There is a correction involving a parameter taking into account how many Earth meridians are crossed by light. Dude, wait, so GPS signals are based on by numerous experiments and identical to the calculations. Where can we pull that? I would like to pull that other one up at some point. Maybe I can pull it up on my own.
The clock
I wanna see
synchronization
this.
thing?
I want to see that, but we're never going to see that. They're not going to
The
show
clock
that.
synchronization. Oh my god. Dude. No, we have to go look right now. Because if that's in there, what was that document called? I highlighted it in green.
You got it marked it green, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Go up, I think. Oh wait, no.
down here.
I think it was towards the top. I thought.
There it is.
No, that's the truck.
not that one. That's close though.
There it is.
This one right here. Yep.
Yep.
We're gonna go pull this up.
Like if we can find that, that will be pretty cool.
Dude, correcting to the meridian, bro. Get the F out of here. You could never, ever say anything about, oh, we use reciprocal GPS angles. Sorry, buddy.
The reason we created latitude was we took angle measurements to Polaris down to the ground. We took elevation angle measurements to Polaris. So we have a ground position directly under Polaris. Like if you were to get to the North Pole, which by the way, you can't go there, then Polaris would be at your zenith, right? That's a ground position. And then what we did was we took angle measurements with our horizontal baseline going out to the ground position and then going up to Polaris and then an angle to that. And what we did was bring that angle down to the ground and we kept on making these measurements further and further away from Polaris, and we created the latitude system with concentric circles around the North Pole. Then we took that and we put it onto a globe. Then we took the globe and then we put that into a cylinder, and then we flattened the cylinder out, and that's where we get the Mercator map. So the actual origin of the latitude system is a flat Earth set of measurements. It's transformed into a globe. The difference is going to be when you get really far south. the longitude is going to begin to compress down on a globe, converge back down, right? But on the flat Earth, it's not going to do that. So to really test the difference, you're going to have to get far enough out south, which conveniently you also can't do that. So longitude and latitude work on a flat Earth. They're actually created from a flat Earth. Latitude's created from a flat Earth. And actually GPS and satellites and all this, they make meridian corrections in the south. They make meridian corrections to even get the right location and distance for the GPS satellites, which shows you that the globe doesn't work in the south.
Well, and think about this.
Yeah, because they're all shown this. They're all shown the relativistic framework. Once they have that lens of interpretation, any varying speed of light, they can just start invoking different quote unquote relativistic effects. And so back to real quick on the satellite coordinate system transformation. So the initial, sorry. So the original coordinate system that they that everything is derives accurate distance under, when they transfer out of that, that's when you can get into things like hiding distances or adding, spherical excess and stuff like that, because they're in a completely different coordinate system. They just need to make it match like in local areas, right? So like in a city, like there would be a different coordinate system for that. It would be more accurate. And then if you were traveling over a long distance, highway span or whatever, they could adjust distances like that. And you would think, you're traveling X amount of distance between this city. And then when it matches locally to the thing, you assume the whole thing is, but you don't realize that it's literally doing constant calculations of coordinate. It's just coordinate system transformations that are all based off of an original preferred directional speed. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
So
against to give that amplitude to the fringe.
I think the biggest thing is that
it absolutely does.
in the GPS satellites or the GPS code being closed source. And every time I say that, I see people in the chat saying, it's not closed source. Here's a link, here's a link, here's a link. No, I'm not saying that it's not a code that you can implement in your device. It is, but the transformations, the numbers, the mathematics is not for you to see. Yeah. So if you lived on a plane and you needed to return to somebody where they would be on the globe, what you would do is you would have those mathematics embedded in your balloons or whatever you're using, so that when a signal is sent from there and you are saying, here I am on the Earth, they say, here you are on the globe. And that's it.
Bro, I did a presentation on that recently. That's exactly how it would work. So when I said, I mentioned earlier, like a shadow coordinate system, that's exactly how it would work. It would all be relative to the center of the ECI. So you would take like the center of the North Pole, right? You would have everything out from there. You would have its accurate position and everything in real space relative to the actual map of everything. And then you would have that projected onto a globe, right? And the difference in there would all be encoded in, and you would just do scale invariance. So when people see a satellite move across the sky at whatever speed they say, they're like, oh yeah, it's proportional to it going across the speed at that distance, but the altitude could be vastly different. But the signal that they send is it's encoded with the information that the satellite is coming from 22 kilometers out, right? So it's already backwards compatible with it on the back end. And in addition to that, you would already have it work that way, and not even necessarily for nefarious purposes, for military reasons, right? Because you wouldn't want to have somebody, of course, be able to actually derive the altitude of your satellite so they could attack or something like that, right? Its actual position. So you would have it, that would already be built into it. And then on top of that, I don't know if you noticed, Jaron, but they have what's called meridian corrections built into the signal time. So it deduces like how long the time was taken, and then applies a meridian correction. So it's basically like how long the speed of light would, if it propagated for X amount of time, how many meridians would it have crossed, and they adjust the time of that, thereby thus adjusting the distance. So like you can't even use GPS to get an accurate reading over long distances, because it's always going to go back to the globe, but it's going to be super accurate short distances. But that's how they're going to hide it.
Correct.
When you try and check over long distances, it's going to be globular.
Yeah, these guys are like, show me a plane that's going 1,200 miles per hour. I can't, because you believe in the GPS distances.
Dude, yeah, it gets super hard with that, because it's already corrected and baked in. Like I was reading this paper from the 90s where these gentlemen wanted to go and look at GPS corrections to verify the speed of light is the same in all directions. So when they did their analysis from the raw GPS data from the main central place in Colorado where they store all the data, the data that they got was already SAGNet corrected, doing air quotes. I'm sorry, my green screen is blocking it out, but it was already quote unquote SAGNet corrected, and they say that this is due to the rotation of the Earth and whatnot.
It doesn't make any sense.
Not to get into the full specifics of that, that's absolutely not the case. And what they're actually doing And that data is applying first order velocity corrections to the speed of light to make it seem like on the GPS end that the speed of light is the same and it's deriving the distance based off of that constancy. That's not true. They already corrected it on the back end before anyone even gets to see it. So the idea that like you can just go to an open source, dude, I'm going to go to GitHub and debunk the globe.
Yeah, Jesus.
Yeah, miss me with that. You know what I'm saying?
No, and then that guy that we had the interview with, Austin and I were talking to him, and he's like, yeah, but it works. It's like, yeah, it works. That's the deception. Like, you shouldn't be surprised if we're saying, hey, you're being deceived, and then you're like, yeah, but it works. Yeah, we know that. That's why it's a deception. If it didn't work, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Nobody would have ever believed it.